Yatima, welcome. Welcome to councillors and to staff joining online and those in the public gallery for our special council meeting on the 19th of May 2026, where we'll be discussing the draft budget. Live stream. Please note that today's meeting is being live streamed and can be viewed by the general public via council's Facebook page and later uploaded to council's website. By participating in and addressing those present at the meeting, you consent to any information, you disclose, including any personal information or sensitive information being recorded or uploaded to the website. There are no apologies today. Now read the opening statement. As councillors, we recognise the responsibilities we carry and are guided by the values of service, respect and integrity. Good decision-making requires transparency, accountability and behaviours that uphold the trust placed in us as elected representatives of the community we serve. Councillor Murray, to read the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. We acknowledge the Curé Wurrung people as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today and watching.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any conflicts of interest at all, councillors, in any items in the budget? There are not. Well, I should say. Public participation. There is no public participation today. So we now move on to item 2.1, the draft budget for 2026-27. Budget for public consultation. To Director of Corporate and Governance, Ms. Robertson, to introduce the draft budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. This report presents the draft budget fees and charges for the 26-27 financial year for consideration and endorsement for public exhibition. Draft budget has been developed through a number of council workshops and it aligns with the council plan 25-29 and their financial plan. This budget's been prepared in a challenging financial environment with continued pressures associated with inflation, fuel, construction and service costs, and we remain constrained by the state government rate capping framework. The budget includes $27.3 million capital works program, including approximately $22 million towards asset renewal. It supports continued delivery of essential community services and investment in key priorities as identified in the council plan.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Okay. Start. Ms. Robinson, given that we do have that thin underlying surplus of 0.78 million, and that, as you mentioned, there are other risks around fuel and materials and construction costs escalating, do we have any other sensitivity tests or backup plans built into the budget in order to protect against any other adverse movements outside what we're currently?
Thank you. That's a great question. In preparing the budget, we have taken quite a conservative approach this time around. We have modelled and made some assumptions around the impacts of fuel. Through that modelling, we have reserved around $500,000 from our capital spend this year to allow a bit of a buffer for the impacts of the fuel and those increasing escalating costs. Outside of that, we do have the surplus as a fallback, but we as officers will continue to monitor expenditure and monitor very closely those rising costs and report back to councillors regularly so that we can adjust as we need to throughout the course of the year. In the longer term, I guess the rate capping does present a bit of a constraint for council, particularly given CPI or inflation is currently at 4.6%. Our rate cap is at 2.75. It means it is quite challenging, but again, that comes back to managing the budget really tightly.
I just want to follow up on that. So just on that, the ongoing rate capping at 2.75%, how confident are you that we can maintain those modest surpluses over the medium term, or do you think that we might have to draw on reserves or take on debt?
So through you, Mayor, again, it's going to be quite problematic if inflation keeps rising at the rate that it is. Things will continue to be constrained. But we are staying true to our long-term financial plan as much as we can, and that shows a modest surplus over the years. So we do hope to be able to maintain that.
Thank you. Further questions, councillors? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Ms Robinson, just in relation to process from, so this is a draft budget, and today we're deciding whether we put this out as is for public consultation. Can you explain how people can actually have input into the budget from here?
Thank you, great question. So if councillors endorse this to go out for public consultation and comment from today, it will be up on our Engage Moyne website. People will be able to review and unpack it from there. Feedback is available through that platform or through email at Moyne.
Thank you, Ms Robinson.
Councillor Ryan. Thank you.
For you, thank you, Mayor. This one is most likely for you, Ms Robinson. As a defined entity, local government are required to undertake gender impact assessments on policies, programs and services. I recognise this budget doesn't neatly fall into one of those categories. However, I do note the importance of gender impact assessments across high-level documents such as annual budgets. Can you please provide an outline of Council's plan to adequately meet its mandatory reporting requirements, but also go one step further to ensure we apply a gender lens on such processes?
Thank you for the question. It's a really important question. Council applies the gender lens over individual programs, policies and services. So many of the initiatives that sit within this budget will have the gender impact assessment undertaken. We haven't at this stage done that across the whole budget as it stands because of the way that it's a consolidated document. More than happy to do that before we bring the final draft back to councillors and include that. It would be a high level assessment because it considers so many different individual initiatives. But it's a really valid point and a really important piece of work. So happy to include that when we bring it back.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor.
The amount we raise in rates and charges is, how close is that to the amount we spend over the year in wages? Just roughly.
So, through you, Mayor, we have in the past tracked reasonably close with our employee overheads versus the rates, the amount that we get back in rates. But given the increase with CPI, we are now tracking a little high on our employee costs versus the rates that are coming in. Just try and get to the page for that.
Right, even for that too.
So
Yeah,
through
30 million.
yeah, so 30 million versus 27 million at this point in time.
30
So
million
we are
is
starting
the wage.
Is the wages.
So with
The rates, sorry,
is the rates, and what's the wages?
27.
27. What's it be?
Expenditure.
Total staff expenditure? 30 million. Anyway, it's going out next week, which I'm happy with. And I've got a few questions that I will take up with the staff between now and the next meeting. So
Thank you, councillor.
it's easier to do it in the office and try and put them under the pump here. It's just not fair, is it?
Thanks.
Asked earlier, we'll have the answers, I suppose. Yes. Any other questions at all, councillors? No? Does anyone wish to move the officer recommendation? Draft vote. Councillor Murray and a seconder. Councillor Bryant. Thank you. Councillor Murray as ever.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Firstly, I wanted to thank all of our officers for all their hard work in pulling this budget together. It's not an easy or a quick process. It's months and months of work, and I'm really grateful for them not only putting it together, but for the many, many workshops that they have had with us to help guide councillors through the budget process. This is a conservative budget, yes, you could say, and it needs to be, given the ongoing fuel pressures and broader economic uncertainty. We need to be prepared to absorb both direct and indirect impacts of that. And I have, through this process, the difference between direct and indirect impacts. So thank you for that. And it is worth mentioning that unlike other businesses, council can't simply pass those costs on. So we're setting aside $500,000 to sort of counter that and help us absorb it. And I think that's a prudent and responsible step. So I do hope that everything is resolved and that money isn't needed, and we can in the future redirect any of those unspent funds back into community priorities and services. So fingers crossed.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Ryan, as the seconder.
Am I right? Thank you.
So you're right. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to support the motion, place the draft budget on public exhibition. And I also acknowledge the significant work by officers. The budget maintains modest surpluses, as has been raised in the presentation of this motion. It achieves a strong 133% asset renewal ratio and delivers a substantial 27.3 million capital program with a major focus on roads and bridges. However, as we go into consultation, I want to just note two strategic matters for community feedback. Firstly, with regard to the roads, they are council's largest asset at over $809 million. And while long-term renewal targets are largely being met, there is a gap between the strategic KPIs and the daily experience of many residents who often talk to us about their roads and with regard to the surface conditions and potholes. So just looking ahead, I will be seeking assurance on our red sealing program, particularly with regard to industry benchmarks, which often target a 10-year cycle seal life. And I would value further analysis on our modelling assumptions and whether the current allocation strikes the right balance between preventative maintenance and the more expensive rehabilitation. And secondly, just with regard to geographic allocation, while larger centres generate significant activity, smaller towns and rural areas contribute substantially through farm and rural rates, but appear to receive relatively modest investment in basic maintenance. So I will be requesting that officers provide a geographic breakdown of recent capital and maintenance expenditure and advice on how we can strengthen the budget prioritisation framework to deliver fairer outcomes across the Shire. Otherwise, I look forward to community submissions. Thank you.
Taylor. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to highlight that, again, the rural part of the Moyne Shire is carrying the can, which I suppose is only natural because there's so much farmland. But for all those city dwellers or township dwellers, just think of your rural friends when you're out there and buy your little bit of cheese and milk. And I'd also note that when it comes to land values, industrial land has gone up 6.83%, which is great. But the residential value has dropped. So I think that's a bit of a concern because nobody likes to see that drop in the cost of their home, because that makes banks very nervous if all of a sudden your house loses value. But going forward, I hope we can sort of conquer all this at the Shire level, and maybe the state government can do something positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. The council wish to speak for or against the motion? I wish to speak for the motion before I return to the seconder. Just a big shout out, as the councillors have already mentioned. This is the 15th or 20th time, you know, with a lot of work has gone into, you know, I want to say that we have a brief meeting now to put out the draft budget. A lot of work has gone into getting the budget to this point, a lot of back and forth. And I think it's a really good balance between a spread across the Shire, across there's, you know, up to 89 localities across Moyne being bigger than Bali. We have a huge Shire, and I think it's a really good balance of having, you know, continuing our 39 different services we have across Moyne, but also responsible financial management, given the, you know, the current climate we're in globally. But there's also some exciting things in the budget. And I've got a good pun here, which I'll share with you. It's a bit of a Star Wars reference about the Koroit pump track, because I think we're very excited about stage 1 of the Koroit pump track. May the funds be with you. Moyne's pump track awakens, so feel free to run with that standard. Very exciting. The Koroit grassroots-led community have, you know, been seeking this for quite some time. So I think that's a bit of a standout in there. Obviously, we're building a bridge in Port Fairy, which is much needed as well. So, and DC Farron Oval, the upgrade there is very, very much needed. It's the exciting kind of female changing rooms. It's a great outcome. So financially responsible, but there's also some great exciting things in there. And still one of the lowest rates in the lowest in the state. So yeah, fantastic. I will now return to the second, Councillor Ryan, you reserved your right.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this draft budget presents a total spend of $97.7 million, comprising of $70.4 million operating budget and $27.3 million capital works program, of which $22 million is directed towards essential asset renewal. This demonstrates a strong commitment to maintaining and improving the infrastructure that our community relies on every day. This draft budget is a conservative one, noting Council has been mindful of the current global economic climate and the financial pressures faced by ratepayers. The top 3 areas of spend include capital works, materials and services, and employee costs. There's often concerns raised that we don't spend enough on fixing our roads. However, this draft budget shows that we're committed to ongoing asset renewal. We also recognise the officers that serve every Moyne community member every day, including those who have worked tirelessly on this draft budget. The Capital Works program delivers meaningful outcomes for our community, headlined by $15.6 million on roads, bridges, including the significant Phipps Street Bridge project. It also progresses the DC Farron Rec Reserve facility upgrades and advances the Koroit youth space, including a community requested pump track, reflecting Council's responsiveness to the needs and voices of our local residents. This is a conservative, balanced budget that delivers for our community whilst maintaining financial responsibility.
Councillor Ryan, return to the member, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So much of this budget focuses on asset renewal as it needs to, looking after the things that we already have. But I just want to highlight 2 of the new things, and there aren't many, but 2 of the new things that I'm excited about includes the funding to commence construction of female change rooms at Mortlake Rec Reserve, delivered alongside a grant from the state government. I have been to many a netball game, many a netball final where I've had to get dressed in my car at Mortlake, where there just simply isn't anywhere to get dressed. It's well overdue. The change rooms will be named after Georgia Wareham, national cricketing star and local to the area. They are so desperately needed, and this is another win for women and girls in sport in our region, which is fantastic. And it's not just Mortlake community that benefit from that, it's every single other club that come here to play. It is such a huge development. It's great for so many across our region. And I'm also really, really pleased to see stage 1 of the Koroit youth space and pump track. This is a community-led project and I'm so excited to see it get underway. My only wish is that we were in a financial position to fund the entire project from start to finish, but it's a positive first step and I'm really excited for the Koroit community. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. We'll now put the motion to the vote. Are those in favour of the motion? Carried 7-0 unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That being no further business, I will now close the meeting at 1:20. Thank you for your time and effort and energy, councillors and staff, at the draft budget for consultation. Thank you for viewing and listening. What a